Oh, you didn't say one. Hey, welcome to the Beardmigos, guys. I didn't realize we hit record yet, but hey, welcome back.
I just stopped counting.
I think doesn't it usually go to that corner? Like we're sitting here like, okay, where's the record button out that flashes? And
it's at the top left, man.
Yeah, okay.
I didn't see it flash. I just finally looked up and saw the word, and I was like, oh, crap. So, welcome back to the next or newest episode of the Beardmigos.
We're off to a great start.
What?
We're off to a great start.
Off to a great, it's normal for us. We're glad you've joined us. So with typical discussions and whatnot, we want to keep things pretty serious and theological. So with that being said, what is the greatest thing you've seen on the internet, or the thing that made you the most mad that you've seen on the internet this week?
So the greatest or the thing that made us the maddest?
The greatest or the worst thing on the internet this week?
I don't know. I spent about 45 minutes just watching video after video after video of like fail army and like America's Funniest Home Videos. And you know, there's nothing better than watching people get hurt.
I can't handle it. I cannot handle it.
So,
and then I think, what would I do if I was there? Would I laugh like I'm doing now? Would I be concerned? But usually they did it to themselves. So I laugh. So.
No, so that's how I used to get Turner, my 6-year-old. That's how we would go to bed at night. Is we'd go lay down and I would get my phone and we would watch Fail Army until he fell asleep.
Fail Army, I've never heard of that.
Okay.
Oh, you got to check it out. It's a good laugh.
One of my favorite clips that I've seen this week is this guy training his son, like a 6-year-old kid, on the forklift. And like he's training his kid on the forklift, and he's like, one lesson, he's good to go, he's ready. Like really confident, one lesson, and he starts going, and cautiously the dad says, "Now don't hit this guy's truck," because the guy's truck's like over here. And he starts going, and he starts going, and then he starts slowly coming towards the truck. Right, so the dad's like, "To the right, turn right," and the kid turns it to the left, and it goes right and stabs right into this dude's truck.
Yes.
And the dad goes, "Oh crap!" and the video cuts out. It's awesome.
I feel like the dad had that coming.
Yeah.
Oh, he totally had it coming.
So I've got two, right? So the best thing I've seen all week on the internet, baseball's back.
Yeah, you're saying that.
Finally. End of July, my boys are gonna win it
Go
all.
Reds.
I'm calling it Braves World Series 2020. Crazier things have happened, but
Go
You and
Reds.
Jared are Cardinal
my
fans,
Cardinals
right?
hat.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is a Cardinal fan room right here, so.
I'm gonna kick y'all out here in a
Yeah,
second.
is the waiting room open? I'll kick him.
And then so last night I was scrolling through Facebook, and you know, you can define 2020 by the month. So you've got, you know, World War III, the world's on fire, Corona, race and riots, everyone hates each other. Prediction for next month is meth gators. People are dumping old medicine down the toilet, and they're worried that the alligators are gonna get it and be all methed out.
Oh, that's terrifying. They're going to be hyped up.
So if you had meth gators for July in your 2020 bingo of hell,
You win.
get ready to yell bingo, baby.
That with the murder hornets. It's the year that keeps on giving.
Right.
Animals. Animals was my thing too. I saw it wasn't the best or the funniest or the worst, but it was just like the weirdest. I saw a picture of like this hairless guinea pig, I think, that looks like a baby hippo. It genuinely looks like a baby hippo, and I can't decide if they're cute or gross.
Is it a naked mole rat or is it a legit guinea pig?
No, it's a hairless guinea pig. Yeah, I'll find it.
It looks like hippo.
Yeah.
I mean, baby
That's
hippos.
awesome.
Very weird.
Excuse me while I Google this now.
I know baby hippos are cute, but this is like not sure. I'm not sure.
Also, hippos are terrifying when they grow up.
I had a big hippo crash on little Fiona over at the Cincinnati Zoo.
Oh, we saw a baby hippo swimming at a zoo. Oh, it was so special. They're just precious.
Oh, baby Fee.
That's what my mom said about me is look at that baby hippo. And then I'd float across the pool as a kid.
No.
Hey man, you're better. You've got more than 4 teeth, so you're doing good.
Oh.
Yeah, but those hippos have good chewing power.
Yeah. So I feel like you guys all picked something different, right? Like Josh picked funniest. Andy, what did you pick? That's pretty adorable.
That's
That looks
cute.
kind of like a dog. Huh.
Oh, did you find it? Yeah.
That was the hippo.
Oh, that was
That's a guinea pig.
It's the guinea pig. It's not a hippo.
It looks like a hippo.
It looks just like
does
a
look like
baby
a hippo.
hippo.
Looks like a hippo.
It's a guinea pig.
I want one.
Oh, is
now.
that it?
No, this is a baby hippo.
That's what I'm going to ask my wife for now is the baby hairless guinea pig.
Baby
That's
Fiona.
wild.
All right, Benjamin, what's your thing?
See, Andy picked baseball, and I wasn't actually going to pick baseball. I'm not that big of a baseball guy. But I do think baseball purists going crazy over the fact that both leagues are trying to get a DL and that they're thinking about changing extra innings stuff.
Whoa.
Watching baseball purists.
What's a DL? Can you tell me what a DL is since you're a big
Alright.
baseball fan?
DH, designated hitter. I'm sorry, okay? But I went with something different because I thought of something that my sister tagged me in today. She sent a video of my dad riding his riding lawnmower, and all my nieces and nephews are in a kayak tied to it, and he's driving them around the yard. That was like a memory from a few years ago, but I'm going to go with most wholesome thing I've seen all week. And I'm going with Papa and the,
Nice.
oh my gosh, that's it? That looked like the hippo. Put that on the, that's wild.
Yeah, that's just cute.
Yeah.
That's cute. I've seen this video.
Is that grown up or a baby?
Like in the fail videos, and I want to try it at camp maybe, but I'm not sure if we should. But you get a riding lawnmower, and you put the tarp all the way around in the big circle, and you drive the lawnmower around.
Look,
You think you try that at camp?
listen to me because I'm older and wiser than you. Okay? Let Grandpa. If you have to think, is this a good idea?
It is.
That absolutely is.
My Ethan still has gravel. He's 13. He still has gravel in his knee from taking some kind of, he was being pulled on something and he went around a curve too fast, and yeah, he still has gravel in his knee 10 years later from it. From camp.
Ethan, come show us your gravel. No,
I remember I had a friend.
I feel like that's perfect, though.
They had this
That
big
story that went with it.
Yeah, they had a big sprawling neighborhood, and when it snowed, they would hook their sled up to the back of a car and drive through on the sled, and then he went flying into a mailbox, and they didn't do that anymore. So
We used to go bumper skiing where we'd tie a rope to the back of the car and then get on a road that was iced over and just drag, and you would learn when to stop because the ice would stop and then you'd just tumble and keep rolling. So, but yeah, I did that growing up all the time.
See, all these stories just prove that Josh's idea is a great idea that we're absolutely going to do. So
it can't be worse.
Your pastor this camp week that we're doing, so
It can't be worse than Skittles and oatmeal. So everything is going up. Okay.
bro, I saw that video. That's disgusting.
What is your backdrop, Josh?
Mine?
Yeah,
That's the office.
I know, but you did something with your hands and it just looked like.
It's
oh, he disappeared.
what happens when you can't be still when you have a virtual back.
Yeah.
Oh, Ben, you want to tell us why we're the Sport Beardmigos today?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
What did you say?
I said, do you want to tell us why we're the 4 Beardmigos today?
We are the 4 Beardmigos. One is beard. There we go. Boom.
Yeah, there we go.
Pretty good. Do you have a hair tie? No. So we've got Leah Sellers with us today. She is it feels weird saying coworker when you work at a church, but I'm the youth minister here, and she is the children's minister here. And she is awesome. Only the second guest we've had, so we're really excited to have you on the show, Leah.
First girl in the Beardmigos.
Yeah, when we were talking over the topic, which Josh is going to introduce here in a few, we were just kind of thinking through our short list, and we thought Leah seems like someone who would have some good things to say on this. And we tried to talk her into just doing all the talking, and we just sit here and nod, but she was not down. But she is going to pitch in a little bit, so we're excited to have you, Leah.
Hey, and just some encouragement. There are literally thousands upon thousands of people not watching this right now.
Who will scroll right past this.
They will scroll right past it and never give it a look. So you're good. Don't worry.
It's
So
a
Josh, you want to tell about the theme's not the right word. Is that the right word?
the
Topic.
topic.
The topic.
Yeah, give me un second. I'm just fixing a little thing. Okay, here we go. There we go. In honor of those guys.
That's crystal clear.
It is. I'm at Great American Ballpark, and life is good. So today we want to talk about everything. If you're watching this podcast applies to you today, because today we want to talk about technology. We want to talk about iPhones. We want to talk about Facebook, computers, PlayStations, your iPod, whatever it is that you use to connect with people. Because
MySpace, right?
That was around whenever. That was about.
Yeah.
Now you're talking about like
That was the
we
first
all,
one.
just aged ourselves for any kid watching this.
We did. They're like,
what was it, MySpace, where you could rank your friends,
Yeah.
like your top 8 friends?
Yeah.
That wasn't toxic at all.
MySpace was not great.
Nothing bad happened because of that.
But we want to talk about this topic because we understand that these things can be good, but they can also be bad. Our phones and the internet and social media has the ability, and often it does, it becomes this place that's toxic, and it's hurtful, and it's this dark environment. And we want to talk about, if you're watching this, you're probably not surprised to know that we're all Christians and we love Jesus. And if you are, welcome to the Three Beardmigos podcast. Like and subscribe down below, and we'll save you. I mean, Jesus will save you. But
We'll do it, yeah.
we want to talk to you guys about how do we use this awesome technology? How do we use this awesome connectiveness that we can have for good? And so to start us off, we're going to toss it to Andy. Because Andy, catch. It helps if you can see my hand. There we go. Okay. Take us away. You're first.
Yo, I'm legit. I was not paying a lick of attention.
Were you looking up videos of the hairless guinea pig?
No.
Be honest.
Technology was distracting him because technology is bad.
So what was my question again? I'm sorry.
Give us an example of the topic for today, of how technology can be hurtful or harmful or bad, but a way that we can utilize that for good.
Yeah, I think the biggest way that it can be hurtful is the lack of accountability with it. I mean, we get behind social media, and I'm in my office or I'm in my house, and I don't have to answer for what I said to whoever I said it about, right? I just, your mom's fat, enter, and it's out there. And there's no repercussions. I can say what I want and do what I want without repercussions. I don't necessarily care about the person that I'm typing about, or their feelings, or how it affects the people that I care about. And I think we see a lot of that today with politics, and not to get on the soapbox because I could go for days about that. But when we don't agree, instead of listening and talking it out, we just resort to fighting and name calling and roasting each other on social media. And so that's my biggest example of how it can be used for bad.
That we can hide behind a screen and
absolutely.
To go off what you said, you have to think, we're taught anyway, it doesn't always work this way, but when you say something out loud, you think a little bit usually about what you're going to say. Whereas typing, it's a whole lot easier to type something and click send and not have that second thought of like, hey, is this a good thing to say out loud or not, So that's definitely a negative we run into. So how do we spin that to a positive?
Yeah, I think you just, one, don't hit send, right? I listen to a lot of sports talk radio on my way into the office, and I remember Herm Edwards, football coach, I think at Arizona State now, and he was going on this big rampage about his players tweeting and how they would say all this stuff, and then he would just be like, look, don't press send. That could save you a lot of heartache, and it may not happen right there, But I mean, we see it now. People's hearts change 4 or 5 years down the road, and then somebody pulls up a tweet from when they're 16, 17 years old. And now, like, your reputation is gone. Like, you could have been the nicest guy, and somebody pulls up a tweet that you put out 10, 15 years ago, and you're outed as not a good person. So, I mean, the biggest way to fight that, don't hit send.
Yeah, I think another way that we can kind of fight that idea of anonymousness and anonymity. There we go, that word. Is to just remember that it is a person on the other side, because I think sometimes it's easier for us to be mean on the internet because you think, oh, you're just attacking this account, or you're just saying this thing, and we forget that it's a person on the other side. That you would never say that if you were sitting across the table from that person. But because of the screen, we forget that that's a person that has feelings. And so we need to remember that, yeah, there's someone on the other side, and that person is made in the image of God, and that God cares about them the same He cares about me, and God loves them the same He loves me. And I think when we can get that in our head, that there's someone on the other side, a person with feelings, I think that makes us be kinder.
One of the things that I have been trying to do lately, whenever I've come across somebody that has a different opinion than me or something that I may not agree with, is going beyond that one post and looking at the person as a whole and trying to find something personal about them to connect them as a human rather than just as this opinion that doesn't line up with what I think.
I think that's good.
Yeah, I really like that. It's just like finding context in anything, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes going back and looking at other things, especially if someone does tweet or post multiple things, you see one thing out of context and you might even be drawing the wrong conclusion from it, and going back and seeing that. And just making them more real, like you and Josh both said, that's a great point. Realizing,
trying to understand where they're coming from, even like, how did they arrive at this opinion? Their experience probably has dictated some of that, where their experience is going to be different than mine if we've arrived at different opinions. And it's good, healthy for me to have a bigger context, I guess, about the person as a whole.
Yeah, and I think part of the problem with social media specifically is that we start to view conversations as something to be won.
Yeah.
Like we want to win the argument. You want to win the fight. Whereas when you talk with people in person, that's usually not how you approach a conversation. You usually, like, if I plan on sitting down with somebody, I'm not sitting there thinking about how I want to destroy their arguments. And
you're usually looking to connect if you're there.
But when it comes to social media, you just want to win. So I think we should also try to stop seeing conversations as things to win, and rather, how can I connect with this person? Because connection is ultimately what changes people. It's not losing a Facebook argument. They're not going to repent of their sins and change.
I think you also make sure your emotions are in check. I mean, if you're responding to something that has just made you so furious that you can't see straight, you probably aren't going to reply straight either.
Yeah.
So, take a breath, take a walk.
Yeah, before you make a reply. Sure.
I have, you guys may have heard of like the old thing people used to do back in the day, back when people actually wrote letters, is like sometimes if they had something to say to someone, they would write it, put it in a letter, not mail it, and decide, is this something I want to actually have said? You can make a post and click X and it'll ask if you want to save it as a draft, and you can save it as a draft. And if you forget to go back and post it, that means it probably wasn't worth saying, first off. But or you might just be forgetful, which I am. Or you can kind of go back and look at it later, kind of like they were saying, when you're out of the heat of the moment, be like, hey, is this going to be something that's actually going to be helpful? So that actually, we've kind of led into another problem that we run into with with social media, with technology, with the internet, with being able to constantly be at each other is not only is it easy to be a keyboard warrior and to hide behind the screen, but we start to see people's true colors, and we see differences, so it becomes a divisive thing. Something on the flip turn with that is looking for things that we have in common for unity. Because did I say something weird? Josh is giving me a funny face.
I've never heard, at least not to my recollection, the term flip turn.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I just created a new term.
Andy, have you heard flip turn before?
No, I mean, I thought he said flip phone, so I was real confused.
I've heard like the flip side.
Well, yeah, no, any conversation with me, I'm going to create a new word. And I'm going to pretend like I meant to say it, even though I had no idea what I was saying. You know what, that could have been a lot worse. He was giving me a look. I was like, I just said something really weird, didn't I? Or like really awful and not realized it. I said what I was thinking. I'm just but on the flip side of that, on the flip turn, I like flip turn better, is looking for unity in a situation. Because when it comes down to it, we've got 4 people right here. And if we told each other everything about ourselves, there's going to be something we look at and be like, I don't think that's right. I don't think I agree with that. And there is no person in the world that you agree on everything with.
Like, I look at you guys and I see Cardinals fans, and I really want to be hurtful.
Yeah, so
but
some people really hate winners, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But
I think we can all agree that none of us like the Yankees.
Common ground, baby.
Common ground.
See what we did there?
And that the
Even more so,
Astros should
though.
be stripped of their title for cheating.
True, also true. But I mean, yeah, you look at 2 Cardinals fans, a Reds fan, and a Braves fan, and you have a love of, or either a love or like of baseball, but a love of competition at least. And that's like a cool thing. Like, hey, we found unity within that, even though we think each other are wrong about something. I think that's important.
Yeah, I think. Oh, go ahead, Leah.
If there are barbecue nachos, I'll go to any ballpark and I'll like the game. It'll be fine.
Look, I knew we were going to be friends.
It's all about the nachos.
Spoke to my heart.
Yeah.
If people can't agree about nachos being great, then they're just looking for problems at that point.
And I think to hook off the Ben's original point, not the barbecue nachos. The barbecue nachos are great. I think instead of seeing people's differences, we should look to see what unifies us, but we should also always ask ourselves, am I being helpful or am I hurting?
Oh yeah, the acronym.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think about what it is. Think. Is it true? It's THINK. Is it true? Is it helpful? I'll have to look it up. Is it kind is the last one, but
yeah.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about. I just can't think about it off the top of my head. But I think it's really important for us, because this kind of goes back to our last point and this point. It's really easy to be hurtful on the internet. It's really easy. And so I think we should always ask ourselves, am I being helpful? Because I think we all can agree that if Jesus had a social media account, it would be helpful. He wouldn't be out there being hurtful. We see Jesus, he calls people out, but he does it in a helpful way, right? He calls them to something better from a place of love. And if we're being honest with ourselves, that's not really the attitude that you find on social media.
Not often, anyway. It's there, but it gets hidden in the cracks.
So then, just to bring this back to Leah, because unlike you other 2 guys, we actually work with children in our church.
True.
Well, true. He does children and youth, so he's the mixture of us.
So how do you teach this, and how do you go about putting this into practice with your kids, both your biological kids and then your kids at church?
I with my demographic is pretty young, I guess, for the most part, and we don't really talk about social media at this point very much. So I'm not sure. With my own biological kids, we definitely do talk about it more and talk about using our voice for good. And I read stories with them or to them that I think are appropriate and applicable that we can have a conversation about. But we have some phone rules in place to help with accountability for each other. That both of my two kids, they're 11 and 13 right now, and they currently share a phone. Getting a phone was a big process.
Bravo for that. That's impressive.
It's not always pretty, but they are sharing it for the purpose of learning how to respect each other and each other's friends on the internet. And so we've had to have some conversations with that, where one of the siblings will have the phone in their possession when the other sibling's friend will text or something. And so setting up rules and guidelines for that, and making sure that what they're saying is helpful and beneficial. And we talk a lot about not hiding behind the screen and not saying things that belittle others just because they can't hear us, but using that technology for connection rather than for hurting each other.
Well, and something I've heard you say with them having had the phone recently is, I know you and Evie really like your TikTok dances, and I sounded like such an old person saying TikTok dance. I don't know.
You like your TikTok dances there, kid?
I'm clearly not on TikTok.
She
but,
does not have an account.
No, yeah, but
just for clear.
well, that's what I was going to say is that you said you're watchful about like what the content that she took in was something that was like fun and helpful, rather than, because it is out there. You got to watch what kind of content you're taking in, because there's good content, there's bad content. There's stuff you got to decide, is it helping or hurting?
Yeah,
so
from a parental standpoint, and even, you guys working with youth, I think being on the apps that they're on is huge. Having a presence there, because it gives you a better understanding of how it works. And so whatever I'm going to give my kids permission to use, I'm also going to be using, so that I keep tabs and help them know that I am watching, and give them a little bit of accountability there, but also to connect, because some of it's really fun.
So what I'm hearing out of that.
No, Andy, I'm not getting a TikTok.
Don't make fun of me for being on TikTok, yo. I mean, I don't dance. I don't dance. I'm way too fat for that. But.
I think Leah just brought up a really good point, though. The internet is a very dangerous place for everyone, for kids, for teens, even for adults. And we need to be asking ourselves, is this content beneficial for me? Is this content helping me grow spiritually? Which is usually not the limited test we use for our apps, right? We usually say, is this app fun? Is this app going to keep me entertained? But I think if we can start to ask ourselves, is this app going to help me grow in my faith or grow in my witness or not, might be a better question. Because if you're watching this, you're probably not surprised that there's lots of stuff out there that we shouldn't be taking in.
Yeah. There is an author that, for if any parents are listening and are wanting some recommendations maybe on boundaries for social media and for internet use for your kids, it's called The Tech-Wise Family by Andy Crouch. And it's a book that gives a lot of insight. Even looking him up to listen to him speak about it would be a good step for parents maybe looking for some healthy tips on teaching your kids how to use the internet well and in a spiritual context.
Hey, can you put that in the link when we put this out?
Sure.
Andy Crouch sounds kind of like Andy Crow. Is that your pseudonym, Andy? Did you write that?
I'll never tell you the truth.
Okay.
But yes, that's me.
And yeah, if there are parents watching, I'm sure that resource is good. There's also if you just Google, like, what apps should I let my kids be on and not, you can find some churches that have put out lists of like what apps do what. And kids, I know you're probably going to feel betrayed by us youth ministers saying this, but, parents need to know. So parents setting up boundaries, I know
whenever I was a teenager myself, any boundaries were going to be, I may not follow
Find
what
a
my
way around
parents,
it.
what was deemed healthy by my parents may not have been what I thought was, good for me. And not that I thought it was good for me, but I would definitely push those limits. So I think it's also important just to be informed about what's out there and know that even if my kid doesn't have it on their phone, they definitely have it on their friend's phone, and I need to be on there and connected to their friends' accounts even. That's something that I do as a mom.
Yeah, and I think it's just to give away some of our dirty secrets, that's the reason I'm on most social media, is to watch my students.
Yeah.
Right? I had no desire to get on TikTok until a student took my phone and downloaded it for me. But
That's the sound. Andy just got unfriended on all social media.
That's okay.
Andy's a spy. I am not, but Andy is. Okay.
The thing is, when they see you there, they know that you care, and that is huge. Yeah. I think that's huge. Yeah. It's not as a spy device, but it is to show up in their spaces where they are and say, I care for you, and I care about your spiritual health. Yeah.
You gotta be where people are that you care about.
Oh, yeah.
Going on with all that too, with having checking ourselves on what kind of content we're taking in, I think the amount of content we're taking in is big too, in that it becomes an idol so fast we don't even realize it. Or it could start off as a genuinely okay or good thing, and it can take a spiral. I try not to talk about sports as my example every time, but I do love sports, and I love seeing like what debates people have on like who's a better player, which team is set to make a run this year. But it can quickly turn into like, how many hours did I just spend on Twitter reading the same thread of people having a discussion on it, which is, once again, burning time, having a good time, relaxing and everything, that's fine. But at what point does it become an idol with time and how it makes us act? Does it change? Is it starting to change your actions? And that doesn't mean, you have to full on step back, but it does mean you got to watch yourself, have some accountability on if it's becoming an idol in your life.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it, and I have two small children. I have a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old, and the amount of time that they would spend on YouTube if I let them,
it's astronomical,
is ridiculous. And so when that first started, I was pretty stupid and didn't put any parental controls because I was like, oh, he's just gonna watch this one thing, and then I realized you could rabbit hole there, and had to download YouTube for kids because of some of the words my 6-year-old, or then 4-year-old was saying. So, I mean, just knowing what content they're having and the amount of time. I mean, there's a reason why parents want to limit screen time, and it's not because they don't love you. It's just quite the opposite.
Even on that idea of content consumption and just like how much we're consuming, I heard on another podcast this week that an adult today consumes the amount of content in one day that an adult 50 years ago consumed in a lifetime. We have access to so much content that can be a good thing for educating ourselves and for getting to experience, lots of diverse opinions and then gain from that. But I think it's really wise to select specific voices that you're going to trust and let those become your content input and not just consume so blindly across the board and so much that you don't have time to like digest it.
Yeah. No wonder my grandpa's cranky.
I think it's also important to prioritize our time. I'm sure you guys have heard this a lot just working with kids and teens. One of the most common excuses we hear about, like, hey, have you read your Bible this week? Or, hey, have you spent time praying this week? Is, I don't have time, right? But I think if we also went and checked their phones, or even our phones sometimes, you'd find our screen time, Apple gives you that scary thing on Sunday.
I turned that off. It made me feel too guilty.
Yeah, your screen time is up to 10 hours this week. Oh, hello. Like, people, like, the kids have those numbers of screen time. It's like, I can't find 20 minutes to pray. Right? So I think we need to prioritize, like, maybe before you get on to watch your Netflix or check your social medias, can we build in a little time to our schedule to prioritize the Bible, or to prioritize, I'm going to pray before I get online.
Even using your technology with like alarms, encouraging setting an alarm for this, praying about this specific thing, or setting an alarm as a reminder to read your Bible for that day, or read your devotional plan.
I think that's where I've had the most success in consistently getting into like a pattern of like prayer life, is when I set my phone to like set an alarm or a notification to pray at these times a day. And that's really been helpful. I think one thing that I think is really important for us to talk about just with technology is I think one of the good and bad things about social media is that it allows us to cultivate the image that we put out there. I know for like me, I don't really think about what I post on social media, but I know that lots of kids are really careful about, they want to post their aesthetic, right? They have that particular thing, and they'll like delete their posts and only post certain things because they want to have this image. So when people look them up on Instagram or on Twitter, right, they're going to see a specific thing. And our identity kind of gets tied up in how people see us online, right? And if your post doesn't get 100 likes, I'm going to delete it because it wasn't a good post. And we allow ourselves to get tied up with our identity becomes social media.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's a really dangerous and hurtful road that we go down. And I know a lot of people struggle with that. You guys have thoughts on that, or how we can turn that around to be a more positive influence with that idea?
I think, that putting in the thought and being willing to own up to what you post, I think that's something Snapchat and Instagram, definitely, it's cool having a story so people can see your highlights, but also I think part of that is why stories and Snapchat get so big, because if you send something out and you realize, well, that doesn't really maybe reflect well, it's going to be gone in 23 hours. So no biggie, right? That's not the whole thing. Like, part of a story is you can just show people what's going on without having to get all cluttered and whatnot. But maybe like we kind of talked about earlier, thinking a little more before we click enter, is this something that is the image that I want myself to be about doing that? Easier said than done. That might not have been.
Maybe even as a counterpart or as a viewer, like whenever you are already in community with this person and you're noticing something that they're posting that maybe doesn't align with who you know them to be, engaging in the conversation, and just as an I see you, and where are you at? Like, what's going on that's bringing this to the surface, or that you're putting this out there, what's going on in your life, using that as a jumping point for a conversation that maybe is needed but didn't have an outlet until that point.
Yeah. And I think one of my concerns is that we identify ourselves by what we put on our social media, but how often do we identify ourselves as followers of Jesus on social media? Like I had a kid in my youth group who I thought it was really cool a couple days ago, just put on their Instagram story like, hey, if you need prayer, send me a DM. And they had like the little like tag that you could go straight to their DMs. Just doing little things like that identify us as followers of Christ, because I know if I went to some of my kids in the youth group, like just look at their page, there's nothing there that identifies them as a Christian. And I get it, because like I've had kids in the last couple of weeks talk to me about like, hey, have you ever been made fun of for being a Christian? Have you ever been bullied for being a Christian? Because that's something that happens. Like I've had kids get bullied and made fun of because people know they're a Christian. But I think it's it's a way for us to be a witness, to start to use our social media platforms as a way to say, hey, I'm a Christian and I'm here for you, right? I'm here to pray for you. I'm here to walk with you and to love you through whatever's going on in your life instead of hiding it. I think we sometimes put it under a bushel and we're supposed to, oh no, I'm going to let it shine, right? See what I did there? Thank you.
Like I got just on that topic, I got real excited. I was, going down that rabbit hole that is TikTok earlier today, and one of my students pulled her mom for the first time ever and made her do this TikTok dance that she made up to a Christian song. And she was real excited about it. And so I just thought that was neat that she just has no craps to give about what you think. Like, she's going to put out who she is, who she's with. And
Cool.
so I got real excited about that.
I found this verse whenever I was thinking through the idea of using your platform for good and having a positive impact on the kingdom by what you post. Also, even tying into some of the other stuff that we've talked about, in 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 22, it's Paul talking about becoming all things to all people. But I pulled it from the Message version, and I really liked how it read. It says, even though I am free of the demands and expectations of everyone, I have voluntarily become a servant to any and all in order to reach a wide range of people, religious, non-religious, meticulous moralists, loose-living immoralists, the defeated, the demoralized, whoever. I didn't take on their way of life. I kept my bearings in Christ, but I entered their world and tried to experience things from their point of view. I've become just about every sort of servant there is in my attempts to lead those I meet into a God-saved life. I did all this because of the message. I didn't just want to talk about it. I wanted to be in on it. I loved how that read.
Can you give that reference again?
It's 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 22 from the Message. And it reads great in other translations too, but I just really love
That one.
One of my favorite Bible verses. I became all things to all men, so they win a few.
That hits different with everything that's going on right now.
Oh, for sure. Yes, absolutely.
Because we want to stay in our little tribes, right? We don't want to go outside of our comfort zone. And that's just talking like he didn't give up his views. He didn't give up his following of Christ, but he did give up his comfort and went to them and lived life with them, which is realistically what we're called to do. I like that. Thank you.
That really tagged on with what Josh said earlier about meeting people where they are.
Yeah.
And that's something that technology gives us an opportunity to do, whether it's through FaceTime, Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, Zoom, whatever, or even just like Ethan's out there playing video games and he's got his headset in and he's playing with a friend. Like, you can meet people where you are, even if you're not able to physically meet them where they are, and you can kind of get into their world. Oh man.
I'm terrible. I'm terrible, but I did it for my baby.
It's free,
Fortnite.
I've still never played Fortnite.
I
played it twice and deleted off all my stuff. It's not my game.
My kids really want me to play Minecraft. I still can't bring myself to do it.
But I think
that's a good video game though. Like, that teaches people to think creatively. I like it.
I think Ben's point though is one we should not forget. We live in the most connected society and the most connected time that we've ever been. I know people feel disconnected because of the nature of social media and it's easy to, not feel connected. But if we're really intentional, and I think that's a big part of it, we have to be intentional. You have to willingly step into people's lives. You have to step into their community. You can't just, if you're just on social media to be there, then you're not really being connected. But if you're connecting, right, reaching out, engaging, it's a really awesome place that we can use for good. I think people have said that social media and the internet is the devil's playground, but it doesn't have to be. It's only when we surrender that. But as Christians, we should fight for it. We should use it. That's what Paul is saying in 1 Corinthians 9, right? By any means, right? I become all things to all men so that by any possible means I may win a few. That's the NIV. And I don't think we're often willing to go that extra mile, right? We make our efforts and then we say, I tried. You know, I tried to talk to them. They didn't want to buy it. They didn't want to buy it. But Paul's like, I've become all things by any possible means. He's willing to do whatever it takes because he realizes the stakes. Eternity, right, is everything. And it's worth fighting for. And so I think we really have to be intentional about using our platforms and our presence for good because there's a lot of hurting people right now.
Another resource that just reminded me, there is an author, I think he's a preacher too, named Jeff Henderson, who just wrote a book called For. And I listened to him talk about his book on a podcast, and he was talking about it might have been his church that started using their Instagram page for, I can't remember what they titled it, but basically one day a week they would set aside their Instagram. They would not post their own content, but they would post support of a business in town. And they just made a real big push.
Is that the church, Gwinnett Church down in Georgia?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
the one. They did shirts and stuff like that, just or signs.
That's a really cool thing. I've read
and they
stuff,
just really made a huge push to be for their community, and they reflected that by stopping their self-promotion and by promoting people and encouraging people in their actual community. And I love that idea of using your platform for good by building up the people around you so that they can see the light shining from you and feel your love, that's, your love from Christ that's pouring out of you for them in the building up.
Yeah. We have a platform, guys. Like the fact that you're here means you have a platform that maybe you're not using. And we have to be better. We should be better. Mm-hmm. And there's lots of ways. I mean, we've been talking for a while now, but we could theoretically talk about this for hours, but you probably don't want to sit through it, and we don't, we got places to be. But just be praying about it, Maybe your social media circumstance is different than my social media circumstance. And you have different people that you're engaging with than Ben's engaging with, or Leah, or Andy. And so what I do on mine might not work for you. But what you do, what you decide to do, what God leads you to do, God is going to help you if you're willing to make the effort. Because God wants those souls more than you want those souls. Because they're all His. They're all His children. Anyone else have any closing thoughts?
My closing thought is just kind of a challenge. Maybe after you watch this, the rest of the week or however long you want to try to take this challenge, when you use some sort of platform, we talked about social media a lot, but any sort of platform you've got with technology, use it for what it started as, to connect with people. Don't post something thinking, how many likes can I get? Don't post something thinking, how can I own someone here? Don't post something thinking just like, how can I draw this to me? Post something, or you just interact with people. I remember when MySpace and Facebook started off, like everyone was always posting on each other's walls and having conversations and just see how each other was doing. We were catching up.
The wave and the poke.
Yeah, all that. Just catching up, seeing how each other was doing, just having fun. And it wasn't about like how many likes is this going to get. And like with anything, things kind of get away from that. So my challenge is use things like this to connect with each other rather than how we can view ourselves based off of it.
I miss poking people on Facebook.
Hated them.
Absolutely.
I liked it when there were a lot of options, but then when they made it just poking, I was like, okay, all right.
Oh, dude, I had some epic poke wars, man.
You could like throw a chicken at someone. That was fun.
Just Josh Morford has poked you. I'm poking you back. Hey.
Josh, something you said made me just think of the phrase circle of influence, and how each of our circle of influence is different, and some of them overlap, but the way that you might enact with your circle of influence is going to be different than someone who has a similar circle, just because your personality is different. And so like really just digging into the unique way that God created you. I know Ben is more introverted. I would be more extroverted, and we're going to connect with people differently because of that. But our circle of influence is largely the same, and we're each going to have different opportunities because of our personality overlapped with our circle of influence. And so just be the unique creation that God made you to be in where you're at.
Yeah, that's huge.
Andy, you want to close
closing thoughts?
close us out, Jinx?
I'm about to
I
mute
said
you.
it first.
Do I get to talk now? How does this work?
Don't worry, I muted Ben and Leah, so it's cool.
No, I muted Ben, not Leah. She seems nice.
Well, okay. Well, they're on the same screen, so I got muted both.
No,
Leah, get the duct tape and take care of them. Okay.
The one, I just want to end with, wouldn't the world be a lot better if instead of just instantly going to retaliation or cancel culture, just a foreshadowing for another episode.
Spoiler.
Spoiler alert.
Tune in next week.
Instead of just going right to that, what if our hearts were softened and we just opened our ears? Right? Some people just want to be heard, and so they may be spouting off just so somebody will actually listen to them. So how much better would this world look like if we would just take a step back and allow them to speak so that their perspective can be heard? And so that's my parting shot is, we've got to, as a society, especially the church, we have to soften our hearts and open our ears.
Yeah.
In order to make any headway, in order to be the light that we're called to be, we have to have soft hearts and open ears.
Yeah. I think my closing thought is just to piggyback off Andy's is we just have to approach everything with grace.
So great.
Yeah, so grace. But there's not a lot of grace on the internet. But if Jesus' followers start to show more grace on the internet, I think we could make the internet a better place and a more effective place that we can love and influence and lead people towards Christ. So just ask yourself, going off Ben's challenge, am I responding with grace or am I not? Am I posting with grace in mind or am I not? Because grace is everything. Grace is what saves us. And so, we love you guys. Make the heart. You guys make the heart together.
Hey.
Okay.
All right. Well, 3 Beardmigos plus Leah out.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, Leah.
Thank you for joining us.
Bye.
Bye.